Okay. Okay, so this is going to be a screencast demoing my weather quote app that I made for app development. So this is the opening screen of the app before you've typed in any zip code. So basically, the flow of the app is that you just type in any zip code into this box. So I'll do my home zip code. And when you can't see the keyboard here, but when you click the go button on the app, it'll fetch information from the Open Weather API about the zip code, and it'll tell you the name of the place. It'll tell you the current temperature there, and it'll change the background depending on the weather there. Right now there's basically three states. It could be either rainy, like this one, it can be sunny, or it can be cloudy. And there's snow too, but there's basically nowhere in the United States right now where it's snowing, so I can't really demonstrate that very well. And then also what it'll do is it'll display a random selection of one of two quotes that's sort of relevant to the weather. So this is a Whitman quote. It says, "I am the poem of the earth, said the voice of the rain. Eternal, I rise impalpable out of the land and the bottomless sea." And the other possible quote for rain is this one by Langston Hughes. "Let the rain kiss you, let the rain beat upon your head with silver liquid drops, let the rain sing you a lullaby." It's kind of cheesy, but I thought it was an interesting idea. I sort of went with it. So first of all, I'll try and find some zip codes that have other weather right now, so I can demonstrate what that looks like. So this is in Florida, I think. Yeah, so it's sunny in Florida. It's 67 degrees, and this is a Mitch Hedberg quote. The other one you can see for this one is another Walt Whitman one. And then I'll go for, let's see, zip code. Oh, that's the same one as before. A lot of testing for this project has been trying random zip codes and seeing which ones work. There's cloudy. Okay, that's my hometown in Maryland. So that's what the cloudy looks like. And there's one quote also from Mitch Hedberg, and the other quote is this one from Langston Hughes. And so the main things in the app itself are just the zip code box, and there's a refresh button, which doesn't really do much except for potentially change the quote. And if I type in a zip code that's incorrect, like something completely awful like this, it'll let me know that that wasn't a valid zip code to type in. Or if I just type in a normal 5-digit one, it'll tell me it's not valid. Okay, so now I'll demonstrate what my actual code looks like. So the most challenging part about doing this was actually getting the weather from the Open Weather API. So this is what that code looks like first of all. And most of this I got from another website, which will be credited when I send this in on Canvas. But I can explain the code mostly. So this is just the API key that I got from openweathermap.org. And just what it does is it just makes a GET request to the server using my API key and using the zip code as an argument. And it just gets what the server returns, and it returns it first as just a data file, which I then parse into a string here. So that's the string that looks like a JSON format. And then what happens, this is something I added, the object of the weather getter itself just has a variable called JSON, which holds the most recent JSON data that's been got from the server. So essentially, the weather getter object is like a holder of the weather information, which can be accessed from the main script. And loading new weather will only change the JSON variable in the weather getter object. So I start out in the main script by just defining all the pictures and stuff so I could easily access them later. And I sort of hard code in like the database of quotes, so this can be easily expanded to more than just 2 quotes per weather option, but I just decided 2 would be good for now. So for that aspect, I have 2 arrays per weather option. I have an array of different quotes, and then I have an array of images that represent the authors. So every time it chooses a random index and selects it from the quote array and from the authors array with respect to the given weather option. In the beginning I just clear everything, and I just load it by default to be 06525, my home zip code, just to be safe basically. It doesn't actually do anything, but that means there's sort of like a buffer in there, and the JSON object isn't just empty. So the main sort of thing that happens is that you'll type a zip code into the box, and it'll run this function here as it finished. So that's when the main action is completed. So first of all, it backs up sort of the old JSON from the previous weather call, just in case the user put in an invalid zip code. And it loads the weather. With this function up here, which I just put for simplicity's sake, and that just calls the getWeather method of this weather object, of the weatherGetter object, and updates that. And so I spent a long time trying to figure out a better way to do this, and it doesn't really work, but I have this thread sleep for, I think this is 0.6 seconds. It's pretty bad. It's not a very good coding practice, but it works for my purposes, and I couldn't figure out a good way to have it wait until just it returns something, or until the weather function completes. So this works for now. And then once that's finished, it'll clear the zip code field text. We'll just clear it. And it'll check to see if the return JSON has a 400 error code. And this should only be true if it does return a 400 error code, which definitely means that there's an error. So that's pretty safe. And if that happens, then you basically just pretend nothing happens. You sort of revert back the weather JSON to the JSON that you had backed up before, and you flash the error message. And that code looks like this up here. This was interesting to figure out, and that sort of goes with the other stuff of crossfading between images. That's just a UI view animate, and it sets the alpha to 1 and then sets it back to 0 really quick. Yeah, and then it reloads the display, and it just brings up, well, it does all of this. So this is the update display. This is the meat of the actual displaying code. And essentially what this is doing is, first of all, it's fetching, or it's taking the JSON data that was in weather info, and it's sort of getting out the relevant information that we want and putting it into variables that we can easily read. So there was a lot of finagling with types here, and a lot of forced unwrapping into specific types, especially with arrays, because you get things with like dictionaries of arrays, or you have dictionaries where the keys are strings, but then the values themselves can be any's. So then you have to cast those to other dictionaries or other arrays, and it gets kind of messy, and I kind of guessed a little bit, but I got it so that it sort of maps out to all the right types, and you can get the right values out. And let's put those just into variables. And so the main one that determines like the background and everything is the description variable, which has a couple cases. There can be clouds. It can be a thunderstorm, which it didn't actually demonstrate, but that is just like rain, except it has a different picture in the background. That picture looks like this. I couldn't find any place where it was thunderstorming right now, though. It takes a lot of effort to try and find specific places that have specific weather to test. Um, but it's very similar to rain. It can also return mist, which I saw a couple times, so I just had that act the same as rain. And snow, it's not snowing anywhere in the United States right now. I looked very hard. I couldn't find any place that has a Guy Fieri quote in it. Just because, I don't know, I sort of stopped taking the quote seriously because I thought they were kind of cheesy. Clear and haze are both pretty, neutral weather terms. So I had those be the sunny picture and the sunny quotes. And with every one of these, the first transition is the background image, which just crossfades the previous background. And when it says here, is just the randomly selected quote and author pair. Oh, and that is decided, first of all, up here. It just takes a random number from 0 or 1 to determine the index of the array. That can be easily updated if you want to add more quotes. Yeah. The only other significant part of the code is changing the font depending on whether the background is more dark or more light. So you can have the font be more of a black color with like a white. I had it as a shadow, but it makes it easier to read if you have more of a gray background. So it's not important. Yeah, so you can just set the font to be dark or white, and I have that in all these different cases. And then this down here is just a quick Kelvin to Fahrenheit converter, just because the Open Weather API gives you temperatures in Kelvin instead of Fahrenheit, so I could just call that really easily. And I think that's all there is to my code. Oh right, this is the main function. I have this in here just for error checking. I have a lot of stuff like this that just like helps me keep track of like where my code is instead of having to have breakpoints which stop my code completely. I can just sort of like look at the progression of my code as it runs without having to stop everything and start over again. Yes, but oh yeah, but this function is what actually parses the data of the JSON, so it has the string of the whole JSON thing, and it returns a dictionary with key values are strings, or the keys are strings and the values can be any. Yeah, and that's all there is to my code.